Hi, good morning. This is Dave coming at you from Michigan. Haven't done a video in a while like always, but we've been really knocking it out. Figured I would do a video. I've always wanted to pass along the information of how I build decks because over the years with just all the different people I've worked with, I feel like I've picked up some pretty good tips. I'm not a deck builder by trade, but I have just built a lot of decks over my life. So anyways, we've been building our front porch here. And I think that was our third day. It took us the first day to dig the holes and, you know, concrete them and all that stuff. 42 inches deep in Michigan for the frost line. But here's a good picture of how I like to do my decks. And this goes for like the bigger decks, up one full story from the second story door. But over here, I usually like to use 4x6s. And you can see what we did here is we have the beam 3 inches, notch it, go up to 7 1/4. We usually leave it 7 because the board's 7 1/4. That the beam notch can be lower than the board. But anyways, that way you have a fixed support. Anytime you see a deck that has the full post with one beam on each side of the post with lag bolts going through or just actual bolts with nuts, I would say that's the wrong way to do it because you're not getting the support you need. Over time, with all that weight pushing on the beam, you're going to either split it, and then what happens when the bolts eventually rust and get weakened, the deck can literally collapse. In this case, let's say that, and what we did here, I just drilled pilot holes. We use lag bolts. You can see them sticking out a little bit. No big deal. They're just going to be under the deck behind the stairs and lattice, but if the bolts rusted in this case, you still have the integrity of the deck all nailed in. And if they rusted, it still wouldn't be good, but at least it's a fixed point, and hopefully a problem like that could be discovered before you actually have a collapse. But in this way, you actually have the post itself holding the weight, and with the notch, that still allows you to attach it. So you get the best of both worlds that way. And that's how we do it. And then, as far as the posts, I wanted to do the video before we have the thing completely built so you can see the internal workings on this. So, the post itself, we do a notch. It's kind of like the beam, but opposite. Where now flip it upside down. You have the 1.5 inch notch here, and then the rest of this goes down. And then we put side blocks, and then you can nail the side blocks. And we also lag bolted through the back. And then I just cut the lag bolts off with a Sawzall metal blade. This will all be covered with, this will have a finished trim here, plus lattice. So any marks, it's no big deal. And then those blocks keep it from going, like pushing left and right. Like left that way and this way parallel with the deck, and then you shoot it, which gives it some pull this way and this way. But then we also, in the bottom here, we put a block that's flush with these blocks. Now make sure you have enough here. We have a big crack on this side. You don't want to make a pocket to where it's filling with water and if you get a hard rain, but you can see down here it's actually at the bottom of the notch. So then what that does is it gives it power for it being pulled in and out, if that makes sense. And on some of these, like we have to put a block here. One thing these blocks do on these posts, see now this is a harder notch. I mean, it's not harder, but you can see that it's still notched in this way with the notch going down. But back to these blocks. The blocks do two things. It gives support, but it also gives backer to the actual deck boards. So in this case, we're running the boards away from the house this way. And so let's say you have it notched here. We put this back piece in here too, because you don't know where this board's actually going to land. And it's nice to have some solid wood if it gets notched around here. And another thing too, is I'm 12 on center instead of 16 on center. You don't have to do that, but if you have a deck that's not too outrageously like sticking out, like as far as coming off the house, like in this case, you're probably only adding one joist. So it's really, you're not talking that much money. You're talking like 25 bucks. It's like $25 to get a deck that's a lot stronger. And let me tell you, if you're going from 16-inch and shrinking that back 4 inches, I mean, it's just making it so much stronger. Okay, and we level them. You can tell down through here it's pretty good. You're gonna get some that just, no matter what you do, you can actually put shims under here, right here, and then worst case scenario, you can always take this bottom one out and shim under there to push it out. So, and then you can retighten up everything, retighten up the lag bolt. So there's a way to do these. Another thing too is sometimes when you plumb them perfectly, you come back in a couple of days, whether it's just drying or the sun's hitting these, they'll be a little out of plumb. And then once you put your 2x6 cap, your shelf, I guess, or horizontal railing, that itself is going to straighten them up a little bit. So if you have a couple, like let's say in the middle, that are leaning that way, put the crown of that board that way. It'll just lock everything in. And I'll do another video on that as well. Another thing that we're going to do for the first time, because like I said, I don't build decks all the time, but I heard this idea and I really like it, is I have some leftover ice and weather shield from the roof. I saw this guy that commented that what he'd started doing is you can just cut strips, like you have 1.5 inches here. So maybe cut like a 4.5-inch strip to where you can have it cover this and then go over 1 inch on each side. And, or in this case, since we have a lot of blocking and stuff, you could do that and like slice it with a knife, stick it around, or you could just lay it on the top where it sticks a 1/2 inch on each side. And I like that idea. And then you just use the hammer tacker to hammer it down. What that does is, like, over time, this is going to rot. There's no way, even if you Thompson water seal it and stain it, over time you're just going to end up with older boards. Life goes on, so people don't really maintain their decks as much as they should. So you're going to eventually come to a point in time on your deck where you're going to have to replace the deck boards. And if you put that weather shield on there, basically it's going to make it really hard for the joist to rot out at the top. And I think that's a good idea, because down the road, if you build the actual skeleton really good and protect that from the weather, I mean, why not? Especially the fact that I have just some stuff laying around that's probably not even going to get used on a roof, because it's like long strips that are like only like 1.5 foot rip cut. So I might as well just cut some strips on the table, hammer tacker it down here before I put my deck boards on. So anyways, that's what we've been doing. That 2x6 is nailed there because that just keeps the layout, and it made it to where we could keep this board straight so we could put the blocks in accurately. And then once you start running these deck boards this way and it locks it in, then you can pop that 2x6 off. So that's just there to, it almost makes me tempted to just like walk the plank and try to dive and do a roll, but no, let's not do that. And then over here, this looks ugly, but I feel that I'm going to bend some type of a Z channel on the side to kind of cover whoever did the siding here. I'm not blaming anyone. Well, I guess I can, because they probably did it in the 50s. They didn't really do a good job with the siding here. It's just loose and there wasn't anything there. So we're going to do some type of a Z channel to protect that. And then once the deck boards go in over that Z channel area, we're going to weather strip this metal here up all the way up to the door, and then just put like a nice 2x6 or 2x8, just rip cut that perfectly to size there. So then you have a nice heavy duty toe kick to kind of knock the snow off your boots and stuff. And then another thing that we did, whoever built this deck last time, they actually brought the step, the first step, up to the level of the actual deck. I'm not really sure why they did that, but it doesn't make any sense to do that. Usually when you figure out stairs, you'd figure out the total run, and whatever rise you have, whatever tread you have, you -1. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a step, but it's going to already be lower, and then we're going to add a step, because this only had 2 rise heights, and it was, I don't know, 8.5 inch rise, and then they started sinking. So it was just unsafe. Like, so when my dad and my mom do these stairs, and really anybody. I mean, I almost fell and just wiped out a few times. You just slip on the steps. But anyways, I'm going to do a 12-inch step, 12-inch step, 12-inch step. So I'm going to actually add a step, which the math figures out where it's going to be like a 5 3/4 inch rise. And then to make a comfortable step, they say whatever the rise and the run is, you want those two measurements, rise and run, added together, and that measurement equals between 17 to 19 inches. So probably about 18 inches would be perfect. So if I have, let's say you have a 6-inch step, you want a 12 to 13 inch, well, a 6-inch rise, you want a 12 to 13 inch run, if that makes sense. So that's kind of what we're planning. And another thing too, unlike them, they didn't have anything, there's no support here. So once you get the stringers built and structured in, and you have the frame, find out exactly where it's going to go, screw it in with 2 screws temporarily, find out exactly where the corners of the outside stringers go, mark it, then you're going to dig 2 more holes there. Like take the stringers out, move the 2 holes there, put the steps over the empty holes, and then while they're in place perfectly level this way and level this way, you can actually throw concrete in those holes, put the posts in, and just get them tied exactly to the stringers as it's still wet concrete. Level it, plumb it, do whatever you have to do to it, and just let that set up as is. So now you have stringers that are attached not only to the ledger board of the deck here, but you also have solid posts holding the bottom of the stairs, so you'll never have this sagging. So I'll just do another video. We're getting up to 12 minutes already on the progress through here. And then, you know, with these, you just, you know, I was messing with my wife when she pulled, and I said, yeah, I think I'm going to go with just a higher railing this time, which is like almost like 1.5 feet too high. And she just gave me this look like, you know, like, what the heck are you talking about? But anyways, this is Dave signing off. I'll do another video on the house, the actual roof, and we got all this stuff done too, but that's another video. I just wanted to do this morning before the guys get here to show you what we're doing with the deck, but I will do some videos on the aluminum siding and the soffits and all the other fun stuff that we've been doing. But anyways, like I said, this is Dave signing off.